Coming up on show 931, Tesla finally added to the S&P 500 and what it could mean. Well, stick around, we'll tell you more. Plus on the podcast today, Electrify America gets Plug&Charge. We take a look at Rivian's configurator, and there's a lot of charging posts in China, you know, but how many? We'll find out. Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily, the edition for Tuesday, 17th of November. My name is Martin Lee and I go through every EV story so you don't have to. So that headline today then, Tesla finally going to join the S&P 500, and it's sending the stock price on a wild ride in after-hours trading on Monday after lining up consecutive quarterly profits 5 quarters in a row, and some would say, you know, earlier this year only hit because of selling regulatory credits, but as I also point out, nothing stopping the other car makers actually making EVs, and so they wouldn't have to buy Tesla's credits, but that's an aside. The valuation has been surging, and they're now not just one of the world's, well, they are the world's biggest car maker by value, but one of the world's biggest companies. And now, with the stock surge, makes Elon the third richest person in the world, if he got all of his various incentives and things that are due to him. Tesla was expected to join the S&P 500 earlier this year, but was denied. Now they've announced that it will be included in the next reshuffle, which is happening in December. And it added 40 to 50 billion actually to the market capitalization of Tesla, over 12% increase in after-hours trading. Financial Times wrote that admission to the benchmark to take effect with the quarterly rebalancing on December 21st comes almost 3 months after Tesla's first qualification to join the S&P 500, potentially adding to demand for its shares from new investors, those who track the index. The stock rose earlier this year as investors anticipated its elevation to the index, only to retreat after the S&P Dow Jones indices passed on it in several reshuffles, but now that's happening later this year in December. So congratulations to the Tesla team and any Tesla investors that listen to this podcast. Not for me. I don't invest in any single stocks anymore. I like to sleep well at night because things that go up can also go down. People are factoring in Tesla's future growth in a company worth almost $400 billion compared to what their annual car sales are this year, which will be about 500,000 cars they'll make this year, maybe 1 million next year. But still, people are betting on the company, the halo, the glow. Betting on Elon, I guess, and it's understandable because on Sunday night he put a rocket into space with 4 astronauts in that are now on the International Space Station. And so, an incredible year for Tesla. Next year is going to be even more incredible with Berlin and Austin, Texas Gigafactory opening up as well. Like I say, 1 million cars could be made, vehicles could be made next year, Cybertruck coming as well, and of course their battery technology developments as well. So lots to be excited about there. I understand those people that say it's not worth what the company is worth, and I guess the company is worth, you know, what it's worth. I'm not one for the investing side of it, but I think it's interesting that it just puts them into a kind of a different league, if you know what I mean, if that's perceived in perhaps a slightly different way. Of course, they'll always have a CEO that can stir up Twitter, but the actual products they make still seem to be loved by, if you look at all the surveys that are done, by just about everybody that buys them. So good luck to Tesla investors, and I hope you have a good time to come in the future. Let's get on to the actual news of cars, and in particular charging. Fast charging your EV at an Electrify America station is now more seamless, at least for some people, because they have fully implemented Plug&Charge. That is the user-friendly name for ISO 15118. It's a worldwide standard that means an EV can plug into a charger, the car will talk to the charger, the charger will talk back, handle authentication and billing. Says Ars Technica. Fast charging your EV at an Electrify America station is easier for those who will be charging in a Taycan and a Ford Mustang Mach-E, and not necessarily too many other people at the moment. However, there's more cars coming to the market with Plug&Charge built in, so this is future-proofing the network somewhat. Taking a first look at Rivian's configurator, a bunch of YouTubers who put their $1,000 down to get their Rivian a couple of years ago when it was announced in 2018. The R1T and the R1S have been putting videos online, so I've had a look. Very simple, much like an Apple configurator. When you get your brand new Apple phone or iPad, it really is a couple of sizes, a couple of options. You know, do you want 5G or not? That kind of thing with an Apple. Whereas with Rivian, I mean, the colours are more than Tesla, but less than some car makers. There's 10 colours to pick from. 2 greens, both of which are not my particular favourite. 3 wheel sizes, 20 inches, 21s and 22s. And you can get a pull-out kitchen because they've got that storage area behind the rear seats. And they'll put a kitchen in there for you that slides out for $5,000. There's the launch edition spec, which has an underbody shield, dual tow hooks and an air compressor, which will be very useful when doing the school run. There's going to be so many of these that never see an ounce of dirt in their lives, because they're just going to be used like trucks are used in the US. But there'll be plenty that are used for adventuring and weekends away and camping. That package, by the way, is $2,000 if you don't go for the launch edition. And then there's 3 interiors. There's black, white and green. And again, the green is an acquired taste, I would say, generously. And that's really it. So if you are in that club, hopefully you've enjoyed configuring your Rivian. It's all changeable, but I think it's just to give Rivian an idea of what are the popular specs and what are people going for, as a way of market research and refining and understanding what orders are coming in and what they need to get out of the door come June, when the first deliveries of the truck happen, and August, when the first ones for the SUV. Let's talk Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Group's Chinese components factory in Tianjin has started production of their drive units. They're called APP310 drive units for those that like nerdy stuff, and that's all to do with the Newton meters of torque, 310, which is why they've called it that. The MEB electric platform is the platform that most VW Group cars are going to be built on, and it's the foundation for millions of electric cars over the next decade, according to Eric at Future Car, who says the powertrain that they're building will be used in the ID4. That is the all-electric SUV, which is going to be made at 2 of VW's joint venture plants, also in Europe as well. The Volkswagen components facility in, did I say Kassel or Kassel? Kassel. That's going to make the drive units for the European market, and I think the Chinese factory is making these drive units for the Chinese and US market. Of course, in 2022 we get the Chattanooga plant opening for Volkswagen, where that'll make the ID4 very, very popular car. I imagine when the base model comes in, and VW fans will be jumping on board with that, although it's already sold out for this year, and they're shipping them over from Europe. And so these drive units, by the way, they weigh about 90 kilograms. That's about 200 pounds. They're pretty small. They fit inside a standard-sized duffel bag, and it's the motor and all those things as well. So they're starting the production in China now, as well as in Europe, and all these little bits of the VW puzzle are just falling into place. Let's talk about the Chinese-made Tesla Model 3. That's increasing production. Now that Giga Shanghai is producing the Model 3 for not only China, but exporting to Europe as well, production is going to keep on rising. Last month in China, they were just shy, 70 models shy, of 23,000 Model 3s being made in the month of October. Now, they only sold 12,000 of them. Most of these were the Standard Range Plus. Now, the Standard Range Plus has those new LFP batteries from CATL. Says Pedro at Push EV's blog, who I love, such a good writer. Tesla's planned production capacity for next year is about 500,000, maybe 550,000 vehicles coming out of China in Shanghai. 300,000 Model 3s, 250,000 Model Ys. Mega. It's going to be huge in China next year. And I wouldn't be surprised for more of those markets that make sense to ship from China to be receiving cars, not just to Europe as well. We've seen some of those right-hand drive models in Hong Kong coming out of the Chinese facility. But of course, by June, I keep saying it's going to be June, but it could be earlier, Berlin will be open, making Model Ys. But I wouldn't be surprised for many more Model 3s to be made in China and those heading to Europe. Now, what we haven't seen yet is the Chinese-made Model 3 Standard Range Plus, so using these new lithium iron phosphate batteries, the LFP cells, because potentially they have a better charge curve than the existing batteries that Tesla use. The technology is a little bit less exciting, a little bit less energy dense. They've been used in buses for a long time, in commercial vehicles. This kind of chemistry is used in BYD's batteries in China, for instance. But they can actually, in terms of charging, have a better charging curve and charge faster for longer. And so what I'm looking forward to, hopefully those kind of YouTubers that might be able to get access to a Standard Range Plus made in China, Model 3. They should be arriving in Europe soon, if not already, to actually, or maybe even some of the charging networks like FastNet. They're really good at putting graphs on their social media feeds. Hopefully somebody will plug one in and we can have a look. They've already had some comparisons in China, sort of, but looking forward to seeing the European ones as well. So, talking of Europe, it could be that regulators kill off combustion cars much quicker than national, regional governments, and actually the car makers would like. A study by the EU Commission is supposed to form the basis for the next generation, the new exhaust emission limits. The VDA, which is the German Association of the Car Industry, is already warning. I mean, you can tell that they are panicked. They're already warning now that this move for it's called Euro 7 emissions, will result in the combustion engine effectively becoming a dinosaur in 2025, according to the website Electrify. Now, that's interesting because I was talking to an automotive engineer off the record recently. He works in the UK for a European company, but he's American anyway. And he was saying that the Euro 7 emissions, if they come in as planned, are going to be very, very hard to hit for many car makers. And actually, electrification will be needed, but just making a full electric car would make more sense for so many of these companies who, facing Euro 7 emissions regulations, are just going to throw in the towel and wave the white flag. Now, this study, which has been reported by the German newspaper Bild, is to form the basis of which limits are to be deduced for Euro 7. Apparently, the authors of the study came to the conclusion that significantly stricter exhaust emissions regulations than those currently in Euro 6 are going to be necessary if we achieve the climate targets of the Paris Climate Accord and the targets that the EU are setting. Not surprisingly, German car industry, a little bit upset about this. Hildegard Müller is the president of the VDA. She's furious with the introduction of the planned Euro 7 standard. The EU Commission will de facto ban cars with combustion engines from 2025. The problem is not the combustion engine, but the fuel, she says. The problem is not the combustion engine, but the fuel. It is logical when you hear her say that phrase, but it reminds me a little bit like the American Rifle Association saying guns don't kill people. Yes, you're right, but you put bullets in a gun and they do. If you put fuel in a car, it does kill people with emissions. So yeah, a combustion engine without fuel, I'll give her a credit, I'll give them that, they don't kill people. An engine with no fuel whatsoever in is better than an engine with fuel in. Look, just make full EVs. I mean, it's the German car industry, and it's going to go through more pain before it gets better. But still. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Lordstown Motors. Question mark hanging over my head with Lordstown. I'm curious, I'm interested, I'm supportive, but we'll see. Lordstown Motors today released a business update reaffirming they're on track to begin production of their all-electric endurance pickup truck in September 2021, with full production in 2022, says Inside EV as well. The plan was to be delivering vehicles next month in December. So they've clearly missed that. Then it was going to be January. They've missed that. Then it was summer next year. And the second half of 2021, well, they've missed that. And now we hear September next year. So good luck to Lordstown. They say they have 50,000 orders, but they are, let's face it, they're non-binding production reservations. They are not orders. The beta series will be on the road early next year for testing, about 50 of them, crash testing and stuff, and then they'll start making the production versions at the Lordstown, Ohio plant. A reminder, it's got 4 in-wheel hub motors, a ladder frame with a battery box in the middle, typical pickup truck construction, very conventional design, looks like any other pickup on the road right now. Aimed at fleets, aimed at being a working vehicle, 600 horsepower, 80 miles an hour top speed. So, if you are buying a truck and you want to go faster than 80, maybe it's not for you. Fleets, I'm sure, working vehicles and big fleets of trucks don't want their company car drivers to be doing much more than 80, so that won't bother them. But as to what Lordstown bring to the party, well, the battery Samsung, the motors by the hub motors, I think it's got a company called Elaf. Anyway, they are, I suppose, bringing the design and actually the body. So good luck to Lordstown. Again, it's been put back and back and back and back, and we just wait and see. We just wait and see with them. Let's go to the UK. Citroen is revealing a range of retail offers for the new all-electric EC4. And if you want one, you can order one now online via Citroen Store. Now, the first customer deliveries, they say early 2021. I gather February, from what I've been told. Citroen Store, in case you're wondering, is what it sounds like. It's an online store launched earlier this year. Retail customers can configure their car, can do the whole purchase, can do finance on there as well with PSA Finance of the new EC4. The 45 kilowatt hour battery, well, it's a 50 kilowatt hour battery, but 45 usable. Has 100 kilowatt DC fast charging. Costs just under 30 grand in its launch base spec, I should say, but we'll go up from that. And has 217 miles of WLTP range. So that's what, 150 something plus real world when it's cold. Don't want to run it down to the empty battery. That's still a pretty good useful range for a family car. Price is a little high for me, being a Citroen. Citroen always sell on price. Citroen's here very much a value car, value proposition, and so they're always very competitive on pricing. And I think 30 grand for a car like that, it is a little on the high side for me. I wouldn't spend that personally on a Citroen, and so again, maybe those prices will work their way down to get a car that realistically isn't going to do 217 official miles. But the styling is pretty nice on it, and maybe some buyers will get some good finance deals on that. Let's talk about how you may get an EV in your driveway if you don't want to buy one. There's an EV subscription company called Onto, formerly called EV Easy, which is when I first came across them. Really impressive what they're doing. Now they've renamed to Onto, and they've just ordered 600 cars to add to their fleet here in the UK. Peugeot and DS, their premium brand, are supplying 300 Peugeot E208s, the GT line, and 300 DS3 Crossback E-Tenses to their fleet. The cars are available to book now. How does it work? Well, if you want any of the cars, they've got Renaults, they've got Teslas and Jaguar I-Paces, lots more as well. The cars joining the fleet now, and you go online and you can, for about £500 a month, have one of these two cars, either the Peugeot or the DS. You can do 1,000 miles a month, and you can do more, but I gather you just pay per mile. You get insurance, so the car is covered. The obviously roadside recovery is covered because it's not your car, it's theirs, like a long-term rental. Charging, you also get a Polar card with it as well to charge. And so let me know, is this the kind of thing you'd like to know more about? I'd like to look into these kind of ways of getting an EV on a driveway. As people are unsure about new technology, they'd rather maybe do something like this, which is probably more expensive than doing it yourself and adding all those bits together, but it's one price and it's no hassle. So literally, that's the price, that's my mileage. I'm not sure you even get a car key. I think you enter it with your phone. I'd like to find out more, and I've known about them for a couple of years, but maybe I'll do a Saturday special on them or something like that. And would you do something like this? I'd love to know. Okay, moving on to China. I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. China has hit 1.5 million EV charging posts. They call them piles, according to the Moneyball Twitter account. As of the end of last month, at the end of October, China had 1.48 million, we'll call it 1.5 million, charging piles. That's up 31% year on year. 667,000 of them are public chargers. 376,000 AC charges. It's 291,000 DC chargers. The public sites are more popular in like Shanghai, Guangdong, and Beijing, and the total amount of electricity supplied last month, they track this in China, was 710 gigawatt hours, which is up 45% on the same time last year. Mega, isn't it? Now, last year, there was about 3.13 EVs in China per charging pile, as they call them. By 2025, they want to get that down to 2 to 1, and by 2030, China's ambition is to have a 1 to 1 ratio. Now, also, what's interesting about this, out of the 1.2 million or so, 1.2 million EVs on the road in China that were tracked, about a third didn't have charging at home or an allocated charger where their car lives. Now, the reasons for this were lack of a parking space, the property manager not allowing, or an employer offering charging. So that's why the majority of people said they didn't need access to charging at home. And again, I talk about this on the podcast a little bit, is how people in different parts of the world have different needs. That's why battery swapping is so popular in China. And yet, if you live somewhere less populous, with space and a driveway and a garage, you're like, I couldn't imagine living without a charger at home. Oh, by the way, talking about fuel cell vehicles in China, I thought this was interesting. The year so far fuel cell total in China, how many do you reckon they've sold? 658. They're blaming the COVID outbreak for not selling enough hydrogen cars in China, which of course China's been very positive on hydrogen technology. Toyota are massively invested in it. Who else is? Hyundai are going big on it as well. So let's talk about, very quickly, the new Toyota Mirai. New trim level announced. Of course, it's a hydrogen car, which is an EV because it still has a battery and an electric motor, but it just makes the electricity on board. It comes with an 8-inch digital display, 12.3-inch infotainment display, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Amazon Alexa, heated seats, 19-inch wheels, side window shades, power folding mirrors, and heated rear seats, ventilation for the back, a head-up display, 360-degree camera, automated parking, panoramic roof, touchscreen in the back for rear passengers to change the heating and cooling. And if you want, I don't know the pricing of the new 2021 Mirai from Toyota, but the old one was about $339 a month with $2,500 down. Of course, only available in California, much like the other EVs that are out there, like the Nexo, there's the Mirai, and the Honda, right? So if you live in California, maybe it's interesting. It's the only place you can get these cars. And in China, well, 658. Yeah, so far. That's awkward. Look, these cars are spec'd very well, obviously being sold at a loss from companies who really, really, really want hydrogen technology to take off. And I hope it does in planes and shipping and even things like material processing and production where they need electrical generation. Maybe hydrogen could be useful for personal mobility. It's a terrible idea. And that's your show for today. Big podcast today, wasn't it? A lot of news going on. Loads of positive news going on today. There are 930 previous shows in the archive, and you can get all of them for free right now from your favourite podcast app and also on my blog at evnewsdaily.com. If you are a subscriber on Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast apps, then remember to check your podcast app because you'll get a new one every single day. And if you want to check out my socials, come and say hi, mostly on Twitter. I'm trying to be better with Facebook and LinkedIn. Oh, and if you get a chance, check out Patreon. No worries if you don't, but it's how we fund the show. patreon.com/evnewsdaily. Thank you to our premium partners: Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Porsche of The Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, NationalCarCharging.com and AlohaCharge.com, Derek Riley, who runs the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel, and Richard at rsimons.co.uk, rsymons.co.uk. They are the electric vehicle specialists down here on the South Coast. Have a wonderful day. I will catch you for Wednesday's show tomorrow. And in the meantime, do remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.